On this episode of China Unscripted, we don't have a guest today, so get ready for a real roller coaster of a podcast. Welcome to China Unscripted. I'm Chris Chappell.
I'm Shelley Jong.
And I'm Matt Gnaizda.
And before we began, Shelley was telling us about Kindle erotica.
Why? Why, Chris? Why?
Well, we don't have a guest today. Should we start on the rails or off the rails? I've already tipped my toe into the off the rails. But
Yeah, I don't think we should talk about this.
okay.
Anyway, it's not something I found. It was like something on Instagram where somebody had asked. It was a book influencer who had asked her audience for weird Kindle books, and they really found some very, very weird Kindle books.
Interesting.
So the part I find interesting is book influencer.
Yeah, actually, that I was going to say that too. Book influencer.
Have you not heard of Book Talk?
Who reads books? Who reads anything anymore?
Like TikTok influencers who talk about books. Book Talk.
Really on TikTok?
I feel like
Yeah.
those two things are polar opposites. Like a 30-second video versus, I don't know how long it takes to read a book, like an hour, a day.
How do you review a book in 30 seconds?
I mean, people do it.
I read Moby Dick. The whale got him.
Spoiler alert, Chris.
Sorry, I spoiled Moby Dick for everyone.
Well, I was about to start reading that book, Chris.
No.
And now I know what happens
Well,
to
it's
Ishmael.
the journey of how... Does Ishmael get killed by the whale?
I think it's Ahab.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
Ishmael-
definitely Ahab.
Ishmael's the narrator.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Well, I
how could he
haven't
narrate?
read the book, obviously.
Could he
Neither
narrate if
have
he got
I,
killed?
but
That's not it.
that is actually this is actually about the extent of my knowledge about Moby
I
Dick.
think I saw a Wishbone about Moby Dick.
No, I don't think Wishbone had a. Did Wishbone have a Moby Dick episode? I swear I thought I saw all of them because my younger sister was exactly the right age for it. So I watched
Oh, you're never
so
the wrong
many.
age for Wishbone.
That's true. Like in retrospect, they really did a lot of stuff with a small Jack Russell Terrier.
Yeah, I mean, it really inspired me to, well, not actually to read books, but watch the show. And then I didn't have to read books, which I think is what they were going for.
Same with
Exactly.
reading Rainbow.
Yeah.
Well, I think in Reading Rainbow, they actually read the book to you.
Yes,
so that's
but
a little
so it's like an
different.
audio book,
A
Yeah.
visual audio book.
a visual, yeah. So
An AV audio book.
it's perfect.
AV.
Hey, China.
I guess we started off the rails. Yeah, sorry, we don't have a guest today. So, enjoy. This is, maybe we'll talk about some musicals or something.
This is what it's really like when it's just the three of us talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, for people who keep asking for behind the scenes stuff, I'm not sure this is the kind of behind the scenes stuff you really want to hear. Us talking about, whether book influencers are a thing.
Yeah.
I can answer that in 30 seconds. Yes.
Don't get a TikTok. So, all right, in actual China newsy news, there's a lot of Chinese spies everywhere, Shelley.
The spies are everywhere. Maybe in this very room.
The spies are the spying came from in the room.
Yeah, I mean, there could be someone hiding underneath the desk right now.
Which of us is the most likely to be a spy?
I think we know the answer to that, Matt. It's you.
What are you talking about? I have repeatedly said, if they offer me money, I would gladly sell out.
Okay, so my logic is based on the fact that you know how the CCP it's like the law of woke projection, but for the CCP.
Mm-hmm.
And recently, they've been warning people in China to watch out for handsome men and beautiful women because those are obviously the spies. And I think,
Are you
Mr.
saying
Blue
You're saying
Eyes over here.
I'm handsomer than
And-
Chris?
you just
before-
insulted me.
Before the mustache, I would say yes. Now I think Chris definitely has an edge.
Ooh, nice. Well, I mean, if we're being honest, in China there is an allure to the blonde, white, blue eye. Remember when we were in Hong Kong
Oh yes,
and those people came up to us like, "Can we take a picture?" And we all thought it was
because
to me
okay,
because I'm a celebrity.
well, I mean, to be fair, a bunch of people had approached you up to that point.
Yes.
Yeah, like this is when we were in Hong Kong in 2014. So we were a tiny channel. We had 66,000 subscribers. But like the first night we went to cover the protest, people started going up to Chris and like talking to him and saying how much the show meant to them. So after a few days of this, we just assumed that people were going to recognize Chris. So when this group of young Chinese people came up and were like, "Hey, can we take a photo with you?" We were like, "Oh yeah, Chris," and they were like, "No, him."
Him.
And they,
I was a lot better looking back then,
yeah, no mustache.
and also 10 years younger.
And then,
Oh, and then so I posed for the picture,
yeah,
and that Chris is taking the photo. So weird.
Gnashing my teeth.
And then like there was like a couple guys and a couple girls, and then one of the guys like whispers in my ear.
no, he doesn't
He
whisper
doesn't.
to you.
That's
He
the
didn't
wrong
whisper to you.
impression.
Okay.
He didn't whisper to you because Chris and I heard this.
Yeah.
He says in a normal voice, "You have beautiful eyes."
Beautiful blue eyes, right?
No, just beautiful.
Beautiful. You have beautiful eyes.
And then
And Matt looked weirded out for a second, and then I had to explain to him that actually the girl standing next to the guy had just said, "You have beautiful eyes" in Chinese, and the guy was just trying to translate for her. But from Matt's perspective,
I would have been flattered either way.
yeah. But you did look a little taken aback that because men don't usually go around telling each other they have beautiful eyes.
Matt, where are you? Shelley, move your head. You have beautiful eyes.
Thank you, Chris. Your eyes are okay.
Well, clearly I'm not the Chinese spy because I'm not handsome enough, Shelley. But you know who is a Chinese spy? I don't think I can legally say that.
Allegedly.
Yeah, I can't legally say that.
Well,
China Unscripted gets sued for slander.
Ooh, bad way to start.
well, I mean, this comes in the context of a bunch of charges and/or allegations.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just be really clear that I mean, all of us do believe that a person is innocent until proven guilty, but it is still worthwhile sometimes looking at the charges if they're very serious and if they highlight a bigger issue.
I mean, there have been cases where people have been acquitted of
Yes.
things they've been charged with related to spying for China or working as an agent for China. But
if the finger trap does not fit, you must acquit.
okay,
That's not bad, actually.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, okay. I mean, I wonder if anybody under the age of 24 will understand that reference. Actually,
Oh, yeah. The trial of the century from last century.
it was the last century.
That's
yes.
right. I can't wait to find out the trial of this century.
I mean, we have another 75 years to go.
Yes, but the arrogance to believe that will happen in our lifetime.
Or you
Well-
could just live for another 75 years and see.
That's all right.
Yeah, you could outlive, the oldest man alive, Chris.
I'll do it out of spite. So, Matt, tell us about some of these latest allegations.
I think the biggest news is Linda Sun, who is the, among other political positions, the deputy chief of staff for current New York Governor Kathy Hochul. And she has been charged, not convicted to be clear, but charged with acting as an undisclosed agent of the Chinese Communist Party.
And she's been in New York government for a long time. This is even
Right.
under
Cuomo, under...
She worked with Grace Meng, who was an assemblywoman at the time.
Right.
And Grace Meng is now a congresswoman.
Right.
But yeah, so Linda Sun she's not, when she was charged, she had already been fired from the
Mhm.
state government. I think because the FBI had been investigating her for a while.
Right.
So at some point in 2023, she got fired from her last position in state government. So the Hochul administration is trying to be like, she wasn't working for us anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean,
You know.
good on them for recognizing that this is someone that they might want to get rid of with such serious allegations. But I think what's more important is to talk about the things that she did or allegedly did.
because it
and-
shows what China wants.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to talk about how she was bribed allegedly with salted ducks
Partially.
from the chef of the consul general in New York City.
That's definitely the weirdest part.
You know, I need to put it out there. I've said that I'd be willing to take bribes. I love salted duck as well.
Really?
Yeah,
didn't know
and roast
that.
pork.
What about goose?
Yeah.
Hong Kong goose.
goose.
Oh.
And I can't get that anymore because I can't go back to Hong Kong. So food is
An acceptable bribe?
acceptable bribe. Yeah,
You will take it in lieu of cash?
maybe not in lieu of cash because a single salted duck is not the same as like $50,000.
But anyway, so according to the allegations, she and through her husband were accepting various types of bribes, allegedly, and had bought, real estate and various expensive things.
It does seem to be
And
kind of like if you are a government employee and you're buying like a mansion on Long Island, a condo in Hawaii, was it? And like and a Ferrari, like these
It's
might
going to turn
raise
some heads.
red flags. Yeah, I mean
Right.
her.
The red flag.
flags.
Yeah.
But what's more interesting is what it seems that she had done at what seems like at the behest of the CCP.
I do have a list.
You have a list.
Here,
Please
if you-
talk
if you
about
have
your
it.
list.
Okay, so she did a bunch of things. One of the things she did was blocking Taiwanese government officials from having access to the New York government's office, changing politicians' public messages to suit CCP interests, obtaining an official New York governor proclamation for Chinese government representatives without authorization, attempting to facilitate a governor visit to China, and arranging meetings for Chinese delegations with New York government officials. I think there's also the visa
She
thing.
also, she like sent invitation letters from the governor's office or from
Yeah,
like
here
the
it is. Here it is.
Yeah.
She also obtained fake official letters from New York State Executive Chamber inviting Chinese government officials to visit New York, which the officials then used to illegally obtain visas to enter the U.S.
Right. And there's one other thing I think that's not on your list is that she allowed a Chinese government official to secretly be on a closed conference call.
Yeah, she did that too.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, she was, according to the indictment, working fairly closely with, not just the New York consulate, but also specifically officials from the Chinese province of Henan, which, interestingly, this is an aside, it doesn't really have anything to do with this, but like Henan people in China are
Waiting for the
considered-
stereotype.
Yeah, they're considered like untrustworthy. Like, yeah,
Really?
like they're considered like, thieves. So like, it's kind of
Like
like
America's Oklahomans.
something like that, I guess. Are
Those
Oklahomans
dirty thieves.
Are Oklahomans considered thieves? I don't
At
know.
least
but-
to me.
Okay.
I never trust anyone
They're
from
okie
Oklahoma.
dokie to me.
Uh-huh. Anyway, just like kind of like unscrupulous people. But actually, what I think is interesting about the fact that she was dealing with provincial level officials is that I think this shows that this transnational spying and all this stuff, it doesn't happen just from the central government, like the central CCP leadership. Like, this is the mandate that has been given to provincial level leaders and even local leaders in China, is to try to increase the CCP's influence abroad.
Yeah, what FBI Director Christopher Wray said, a whole of society approach.
Yeah, I mean, I think even these Chinese police stations that were in the news, like a lot of them were set up by specific cities or provinces in China. It wasn't the central government setting up these police stations. It was like the Fujian police station. Police were setting up a police station in New York City or something like that. So
Yeah. Well, Linda Sun also had a lot of ties to United Front groups, which United Front Work Department is an actual branch of the Chinese Communist Party, tasked with influencing like Western governments from like the highest levels to the lowest level, and also repressing and spying on Chinese citizens in other countries. So Sun also was hired as a committee member for the All China Federation of Returned Overseas Chinese, which is influence operations for overseas Chinese. Anytime you see something like an All China Federation of, it reeks of United Front.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, the United Front is operates in so many dozens and dozens of different overseas Chinese groups, and you don't always know which ones it is. And sometimes the influence is greater or less, depending on whether the group was set up for that reason or it's been simply infiltrated.
also, like, sometimes they also do normal, quote unquote, community outreach events or things like that. It's a good cover.
Salted Duck Festival.
Salted Duck Festival. Yeah, the salted duck thing is so specific, you know. Yeah.
Not even Peking duck, just salted duck.
Maybe it's a greater delicacy.
I don't know. Or she didn't want to make it too obvious to the FBI. Sure, there's like these mansions and condos and Ferraris, but like if it was Peking duck on top of all that, then it would have been way too big of a red flag. So it's just
Salted duck.
just salted duck.
Okay.
Served on top of a Ferrari.
Yeah.
So
I also want to say, if people are from Hunan, don't be mad at me. My dad's from Hunan.
If you're watching from Oklahoma, stop watching. I don't want you. I don't want your people here watching my shows.
Great. Well, I appreciate that display of bigotry. And again, like the important thing to pay attention to about Linda Sun is, regardless of which of the allegations she ends up being convicted on, it shows what the CCP wants to do. The Chinese Communist Party is trying to infiltrate not just the U.S. federal government, but also the state government and also city government. So it's this sort of subnational level, they call it. So we have such an enormous machinery in the CCP that wants to infiltrate and subvert every level of American society. And it's like a death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's like all these little things that they're doing that are subverting, and maybe they get a person in here in New York, and they get another person here in San Francisco, and they get another person, and eventually you have an impact politically.
It does take advantage of the federated system of the United States, where like even if like the federal government is sanctioning Chinese authorities and making it difficult for a direct influence there, China can go in through states at the state and local levels, even down to the city and town level.
Yeah, I mean,
to
the
make this influence.
FBI is supposed to be educating state officials, or like they started this program to try to like let people know that this is happening and what to watch out for in terms of, foreign political influence. I just don't know how widespread that is and how well. And also, I think that the interesting thing about Linda Sun is it shows you that you don't even have to necessarily elite capture the governor of New York, right? Like that would be the ideal. But even if you only get to have somebody working in the governor's office who is sympathetic enough or, supposed to be doing things for you, for example, changing your the governor's public statements so that they don't mention the Uyghurs, or blocking the Taiwan delegation from meeting the New York governor.
Yeah, or as in the case with current New York City Mayor Eric Adams, he skipped a 2023 banquet with Taiwan's president, then President Tsai Ing-wen, and instead rubbed shoulders with those Chinese officials.
I mean, Eric,
he seems like he might have some more direct.
He's been to China something like 6 times when he was Brooklyn Borough president.
And signed a friendship agreement with Shanghai.
There is somebody inside Eric Adams's office that is not indicted, but has been accused of kind of being a fixer for him and has close ties with the Chinese community in a way that could be CCP influenced. I'm not sure that anything's been proven about that yet, but my understanding is that there's some kind of investigations going on.
And there are certain things that can be done that are still legal according to U.S. law, right? Like it depends whether they're acting as a paid agent or not. You know what I mean? Like
I don't think you have to be a paid agent to be. If you're not registered under FARA, that is illegal.
Right.
Yeah.
But well, anyway, we don't want to get into the legalities of it. But the issue is that there is a lot of influence, and I mean, I think the Linda Sun case has brought this back to the forefront, but it's something that's been going on for a very, very long time. and we've been covering for like 12 years.
What I am surprised about is like none of the allegations in the indictment make it seem like she was doing like a Fang thing. If you remember Fang, the Chinese agent who slept around with some U.S. officials. Not Eric Swalwell.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think that anything has actually been proven with Eric Swalwell, but...
Yeah. There was definitely something with some other mayor or official, I forget. Nothing directly with Eric Swalwell, though that is what accusations are often made. But this surprises me because, my opinion, but, you compare Fang to Linda Sun. Sun's more of a looker.
Really?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Huh. I mean, Linda Sun is also a good 10, 15 years older than Fang was when she was supposed to be doing all the honey trapping stuff.
Yeah,
honey pot trapping,
she's got
whatever.
a look experience.
Okay. All right.
Let me know in the comments below. Fang versus Linda Sun. Who do you think?
Yeah, okay.
Who would you rather be
we're
honey
now
trapped
doing.
by?
Yeah.
We're rating the sex appeal of Chinese spies.
Yeah, why not?
Alleged.
I'm playing the YouTube game. You can put it on TikTok. Top 10 favorite Chinese spies.
Actually, that would be a fun video to do.
Number 1, Matt.
It's the mustache.
But that was not the only alleged Chinese spy.
There was also the case that came out of, and this is a more nuanced and interesting one, which is the dual U.S.-Israeli citizen, Dr. Gal Luft, who's being charged for being a Chinese agent and an arms dealer. And
that seems crazy enough on the surface.
It is crazy enough.
Arms dealer too, yeah.
But so here's where his case gets more interesting and complex. And I definitely don't know what the deal behind these charges is, because so he worked according to his own video testimony that I watched. He said he spent 4 years as an advisor to CEFC, and that's like a major Chinese energy conglomerate. Now that is also CEFC is that conglomerate also had dealings with Hunter Biden, and so he claims that he in 2019, like early 2019, approached the U.S. authorities and said that to talk about these what he believed were shady ties between Hunter Biden and or the Biden family and CEFC, because he claims that this is before Biden officially announced his candidacy. He claimed it was for to help the U.S. national interest. So now that he's being charged with these things
by the Biden administration, DOJ.
Right? I mean, it's the DOJ, but obviously the DOJ has done some things that I think a lot of people could probably agree are somewhat political in nature. Anyway, he's being charged. He's arrested. And, these charges of being a Chinese agent and an arms dealer, they might be true. They might not be true. They might be, though, also tied to...
Well, he claims that this is retaliation, right? That these charges are fake.
For the Hunter Biden thing.
And it's the DOJ trying to squash the Hunter Biden accusations that he had made.
Right. And so I don't know. And it could be neither and it could be both. Or it could be one or the other, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no way to know who's telling the truth
right
at this point with the amount of information we have. One of the interesting things is if he approached the government in 2019, he was technically approaching the DOJ under the Trump administration.
Right.
But if he's claiming that essentially that's why the DOJ is going after him, then this kind of feeds into the whole idea that some conservatives have that like the FBI or the DOJ were undermining Trump or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or trying to suppress information about Hunter Biden and his foreign dealings or alleged foreign dealings. I
think the one thing that is definitely true is that we don't know the full scope of Hunter Biden and Jim Biden's dealings with China.
But does it even matter? I mean, is Joe Biden even relevant on the political scene anymore?
Is Joe Biden president?
I mean, I think it does matter because you want to know if that happened, because if that was successful, it means that they can run that same playbook again.
right.
And maybe have.
Yeah, and so we don't really know what. And I remember when we did that podcast with Christopher Balding in 2019 after the Hunter Biden laptop thing came out, and we were talking not about the laptop, but the other information about Hunter Biden's dealings with China and how he likely made a lot of money that wasn't disclosed because people didn't understand the way that I can't explain the specifics at this point, but you can go back and watch that podcast.
It would have been 2020, right?
Oh, yeah, it would have been 2020. It would have been fall of 2020.
Yeah, there are ways that they kind of hide all of the different connections and ways money travels from like a company to somebody to another company.
So while Hunter Biden's lawyers could be correct in that they only it's technically correct that they that their fees were something or other, they didn't disclose the other types of compensation that Hunter Biden was likely getting.
So much salted duck.
Yes, that part. But yeah.
The more money you have, the more tools you have at your disposal to launder money.
But also the interesting thing is, remember NBC News came after Christopher Balding and our podcast for having him on and tried to make it seem like everything we were talking about was obviously misinformation.
Oh God, I forgot.
You forgot about that.
I forgot. You know what? These things happen, and like people accuse us of all this stuff, and then I kind of forget about it because, like,
I mean,
we end up being right, and then I just forget about all the criticism.
Well, I mean, also NBC News published a bunch of untrue things about us.
Sure,
but
NBC News, Vox News, everyone has been.
Everybody betray me. I'm fed up with this world.
Thank you for the reference to The Room, Chris.
But yes, so I wouldn't be surprised if there are other things that we don't know about that are. I mean, look at how long it took for it to be widely acknowledged that the Hunter Biden laptop was genuine and not Russian disinformation.
Yeah. Well, it was considered real from a certain part of the U.S. population.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also remember how much pressure we faced, including YouTube censorship, for talking about controversial issues such as possibilities on the origin of COVID when we started talking about it in like early 2020.
I'm sorry we kind of dropped the CCP virus labeling of that. Remember when we used to call it the CCP virus?
Yeah, I thought that was a good label, but
good.
it just didn't catch on
because it came from CCP. Little side tangents, and we're talking about the family members of politicians. I just found out that Barron Trump is going to my old alma mater. Not California Lutheran University, New York University.
I was like, that is very
specific.
I forgot. Yes, he's going to Stern, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm hoping that we can connect and solve crimes together.
Well, that means he didn't go to mine and Donald Trump's old alma mater, Penn, with the Wharton School. Yeah.
Nobody famous went to my alma mater, which was Harvey Mudd College.
Illustrious.
Yes. I mean, it's just like engineers and chemists and mathematicians. So, yeah.
And you are far from any of those things.
I'm so far. When I was first applying to colleges, I thought I was going to be an engineer.
You know, we talk about how like I got a master's in music, but we don't talk about how you got a master's in like.
I didn't get a master's, but I did.
You studied the chemistries or something.
When
the chemistries.
Yeah.
I remember I
got a degree in music, Shelley. I don't understand these fancy. Like, what's the big deal of being like a train conductor engineer?
Well, so you can have a show
about trains. And then you can also be in a rock band. And
why do you need an engineer if Thomas is sentient?
That's a good point.
I don't. That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm exposing all kinds of things.
We're going to get censored for that conspiracy theory.
It's Russian disinformation. Thomas is not sentient.
I'm okay.
Anyway, we got very distracted, but you were talking about the family members of officials.
Yeah, we're going back to what you were saying. I don't know.
There's nothing to discuss regarding my engineering path not taken.
I mean, a
It's
lot of people.
A bridge not built.
Yeah.
A lot of people go into college thinking that they're going to do something like pre-med and then don't,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I was planning to party.
At Christian Lutheran College.
Yeah, it was a dry campus. I made a mistake.
How did they feel about dancing?
That you could dance if you want to.
I did have a friend whose boyfriend went to a very strict Christian college, the kind where you could not have any like a boy could not step foot inside the girls' dorm, like not just after curfew hours or something, but you could not enter the building.
Okay.
And there was no dancing.
No dancing.
Yeah.
How do you legally define dancing in that circumstance?
I'm not sure.
Like, what is the line between?
I'm pretty sure this
frolic-
was not a law. Could they frolic in the grass? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
I'm going to go with probably not.
What if the Holy Spirit moves you? Is that dancing? I have questions about this school.
Well, not all.
Put me in contact with your friend.
You have deep theological questions, I believe.
Yes.
But on the other hand, there are Christian, groups that are based on dancing, right? Like
Well, there was like
worship
the Quakers, and didn't they Quake or something?
or Shakers.
The Quakers were different from Shakers.
Yes.
Right.
Some
don't
made
know.
oats.
The Shakers believe that one should not engage in the physical acts that are required for procreation.
So they've left a style of furniture and one song and no
Oh yeah,
actual
the gift to be simple.
Yes, and no actual Shakers.
Yeah, they kind of bred themselves out. Well, they didn't breed themselves.
Yes, that's the problem. You can't really recruit enough people to make up for the fact that you're not going to
Yeah.
have kids.
Also, Hong Qiuquan, the crazy guy in the Qing dynasty who thought he was the younger brother of Jesus and led the Taiping Rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was also strict prohibitions against,
Dancing?
well, I don't know, but reproduction.
Oh, well,
Although
Well,
he
but-
had loads of sex.
really?
Yes. He wrote poems about how like all these young girls needed to cool his divine flame.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any cult becomes a sex cult.
Right. And then his rebellion went on to kill like 30 million people.
20, but that was still the largest uprising in human history.
They didn't really have to worry about whether or not they were going to procreate after that.
No.
No.
Eventually they were defeated by the Qing. But yeah, it's a fascinating part of Chinese history that like no one really talks about. It'd be like if some guy in the U.S. decided he was the younger brother of Jesus and like took over New York City for a bunch of years.
I don't know that nobody talks about it. This is like one of the chief reasons the CCP wants to suppress religion, right?
Yeah, I guess it's not talked about like out. No one in the U.S. knows about this.
No one in the U.S. knows anything about Chinese history.
No, not
Just
me.
go to somebody on the street and go, name a dynasty.
That Chinese restaurant down the street, Dynasty.
That one's closed now.
I know, I'm sad.
Yeah. That was the old New York.
That's the old New York, yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to know more about that topic, I highly recommend the book God's Chinese Son by Jonathan Spence.
But thank you for that 30-second review.
Yes, hey, TikTok.
Chris becomes a book talker. Yeah.
Is that the word they use for it?
Book talk, like BOOKTOK, not talk or
Like not TikTok.
TikTok. Book talk.
it-
TOK.
If
Oh, it is? It's
Yes.
book talk?
Yes.
That's a little clever.
You're like, I kind of grudgingly admire that.
what would be the Australian slang? Would it be like bucko?
No, this
What?
is what?
What?
This is not slang. This is a portmanteau.
Go back to engineer school,
This is a
dummy.
portmanteau between
You don't need to
TikTok and
drive
book.
that sentient train.
It's not a.
What? Okay, for clarity, the original reason I wanted to be an engineer was not to be a train engineer. It was because, and this is actually true, I wanted to design roller coasters.
Wow.
That was actually my childhood dream.
On Gamers Unbeaten, why haven't we played Roller Coaster Tycoon?
I don't know.
This is like such an innocent side of Matt. I didn't know.
I really wanted to do this, and then so my second semester of freshman year, I was studying engineering. I was on this course, and then I went on this this trip with a bunch of friends, and we were like climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, and like halfway up the mountain, there was this one woman who she later became like a really well-known U.S. ambassador, and but she at the time she said to me, what are you studying? Engineering. Well, why do you what's your interest? What do you want to do with it? And I said, well, I want to design roller coasters. And she's like, well, that's not very meaningful, is it?
And then Matt had an existential crisis on
I
Mount
did.
Kilimanjaro.
I had an existential crisis.
I'd have pushed her down Mount Kilimanjaro.
She would not have worked. She was in great shape.
It's also not very steep.
The challenge with Kilimanjaro is not how steep it is.
It's the ghosts.
No, it's the lack of oxygen.
Nice, Chris.
But good. Yeah, no, it's because when we out of 20 people, I think only 10 of us or so made it to
Everyone
the
else died?
summit. No, it's just that we left so it's like a week to take to get up to like acclimatize
Whoa,
on.
really?
And on the last day, you go to bed early, and we got up. We timed it with the full moon. We got up at like 3 a.m. Filled our water bottles with boiling water. We'd only have a few hours before the water froze. And we started hiking up. And at this point, it's totally barren, just like rocks and ice. And you're like walking up because if you get caught after like too late in the day, then you die. So you have to start really early and get to the summit, like ideally in the first few hours of the morning, to mitigate some of the risk. Anyway, the hard part was that there's hardly any oxygen up there, and we didn't bring oxygen. It's not like Everest where people typically bring oxygen. It's not as high as Everest, and so it's not as challenging for that reason, and it's not as treacherous. It's a much easier but very extreme mountain climb. And then like there's maybe 25% the amount of oxygen as at sea level. So, I would like take a couple breaths and just like, like I gotta sit down, right? And I had this friend of mine, Dave, who was just like, I got to near the rim and I not quite at the very top, and he's like, "Come on, Matt, you can do it, you can do it." And he like kind of like pushed me to get to the very top. He was
that energetic with that oxygen.
He was. I was like amazed. He's a phenomenal athlete. Even now, like at 40, he's a phenomenal athlete. But yeah, so I barely made it, to be honest. It was the hardest physical thing I've ever done in my life. And then now, like the sun has just come up. We've gotten our photo at the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. I'm like freezing cold. I'm exhausted. And then you kind of like duct tape your boots to your pants, and you use like hiking poles to kind of ski down the gravel to get down as quick as you can, because all you want to do is get more oxygen. Like that's the only thing that I could think of is how to, I wanted to breathe.
I can relate. At my Lutheran college, most of the time I wanted to get down too.
But you were not allowed to get down or boogie. But so then by the time we got down from Mount Kilimanjaro, I no longer wanted to design roller coasters.
Wow. So you went on a spiritual roller coaster.
I did not intend for that change to happen.
I also like how you kind of just name dropped Kilimanjaro. It's almost like someone starting an anecdote with, I was summiting Everest with...
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean,
I did name drop it, but Yeah, no, I did.
No, I mean, I'm teasing you a little bit.
I
but it-
climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, one of the top 20 most difficult mountains.
Mountain
I
talk. I had this whole scenario in my mind. Maybe it's happened in an alternate universe where you were like really passionate about roller coasters, and your dad was like, "No son of mine's going to build roller coasters." And then you build a roller coaster, and like he grudgingly gets on, and he has so much fun. And then at the end, you embrace, and it's tears. And
This honestly sounds like it could be a Wes Anderson movie.
yeah,
Just
probably.
because the crazy aesthetics of what the roller coaster would be. I
Yeah,
could
the
see
weird
that. Yeah.
symmetry.
Yeah.
Wes, I know you're watching. I'm a big fan. Go ahead, make it.
I just wanted my dad to be proud of me.
For roller coasters.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, you didn't build roller coasters, and he was proud of what you did do.
He was eventually proud of it. I think that he really liked once I got involved in China Uncensored. He was very happy that I had found something that I enjoyed, and from his perspective, because he was a civil rights attorney, he said to me, "Matt, I don't want you to follow in my footsteps." This was when I was a teenager, and I said I wanted to be a lawyer. He said, "Don't try, because I grew up in a different era, and the circumstances I faced, you won't face. So you won't be able, no matter how good you are, how hard you try, you'll never succeed at following in my footsteps, because it's a different era. So what I want for you is to find something that you're passionate about."
And then you were like,
Roller coasters. It took me many years to have the opportunity to be involved in this, and for that I'm very grateful. But I did finally feel like I found something that I love. Because I love sticking it to the CCP. I love helping produce this disgraceful anti-China garbage.
That's right. Yeah, it's interesting. We were talking to another influencer, I guess I'll call him that, who said like one of the challenges that he faces is just like he kind of hates talking about what he talks about for
he's
years
just
and
kind
years
of
and
tired
years.
because he's been doing it for almost 20 years or something, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're as passionate as ever.
I do find it fun and engaging after all of these years.
It's really been, if you think about it, a roller coaster. I hope you're enjoying this. I'm enjoying this, audience.
Yes.
Unless you're from Oklahoma, then turn it off.
Should we work that into American Cover that you love Delaware but hate Oklahoma?
I kind of like that idea, yeah.
Why Oklahoma?
It was just the first state name that popped into my head as like
So South Dakota got off easy.
I guess so.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think one of those, flyby states, as those horrible liberal elite would call them. You're the heartland of America, except for Oklahoma.
Nebraska's great, though.
Good friend and college roommate of mine is from Nebraska.
I have ancestors from half of my family is from Nebraska.
Oh, so that's where you get your yellow hair. It's corn.
Yes, my great-great-grandfather was a scarecrow.
They were deep in the lore of the show.
I'm kind of picturing like a corn golem now. Like this is like...
My actual great-grandfather was like a crazy inventor. And he invented one of the first televisions back when it was
Go into this, Matt. Hey, we're learning about Matt on this podcast.
This is Matt Unscripted.
So he
built a television?
The television was an idea that was available, and people like engineers from across and like tinkerers, he only had an 8th grade education.
The people who drive Thomas.
Right.
Yeah.
Tinker?
Engineers, tinkerers.
Okay.
So he was communicating with these other engineers on like using ham radio, which is made out of bacon, and
Canadian bacon.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's the shape works better for the radios.
That's why there was the War of 1812, right?
So he and a bunch of other engineers, they'd heard about this technology, and they all kind of worked together to put it together. So he built, maybe he wouldn't necessarily be called an inventor of it, but he was one of the first people who created one. But there was no way to test it because there wasn't a broadcast yet. And then he heard, this guy, by the way, before I get to that, he was in a small town in Nebraska, and he designed and built the electrical grid for the town. And he was also like the engineer and repairman for all of the, like during the winter storms, he'd have to climb up the telephone poles and the electric poles and fix it.
Wait, is this your ancestor that had the 8th grade education?
Yeah, because he had to drop out because he had to support his family and work.
And he was a scarecrow?
No,
that was
corn
that
Gollum.
the other
Oh, okay.
grandfather.
He's a corn
So-
golem.
So he heard after he'd already built this television, he heard from one of his contacts that there was a broadcast signal coming out of Southern California. This is before there was content on television, just the broadcast signal. And so he packed up his proto television in his gear, and he went out to California to test his television, and it worked, and he was excited. But what he was more excited about is like, oh my gosh, the weather in California is so amazing.
Wait, did he go to Northern California or Southern California?
Southern California, like
Okay.
LA area. And he basically wrote to, and my family still had these letters, like he wrote to his wife, and he's like, sell the house, pack up the jalopy, pile everyone on, and we're all moving out to California.
Oh my gosh,
And
this
so-
show wouldn't exist if it weren't for TV.
Well, I mean, for a lot of reasons, yes, that's true.
So he
Yes, you're right. That's less impressive now that I think about it.
Anyway, so he moves out to California. He gets a job in the aerospace industry, like designing aircraft, because you could do that with an 8th grade education if you were sufficiently well read and intelligent. They only looked at what you could do.
Mathed, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he was he was basically the stereotype of a like crazy inventor guy, right? And so so that's how my family ended up in California. And
I'm imagining what is it great grandmother? Like, how far back does this go?
this is my great grandfather Ralph. So you're talking about his wife?
Yeah. So I'm imagining your great grandmother expecting your great grandfather to come back from California, instead getting a letter that's like, sell the house and pack everything, we're moving, and then having to be like, what?
Well, I think if you marry a crazy inventor, you're probably a particular type of lady.
Yeah.
What type of
What
lady
type of lady,
is
though?
that?
A lady of the evening. No. One who would be like, all right, let's move to California.
Well, I mean, apparently they did that.
Yeah.
They did. They
Yeah.
did. And so they left rural small town America. And
What year was this?
I think this would have been could have been late 20s.
They had a signal as far back as that?
I honestly, I'd have to look it up.
That's a very interesting story.
Yeah. So if I thought I was going to talk about this, I would have gone back and I would have asked my mom to like send me the letters so I could find out the exact dates and everything.
I
But-
mean, you could still do it. We could do it in a future podcast.
If there's enough interest for some reason.
I mean,
maybe.
I think this is interesting.
And it's
This
really
is,
interesting.
anyway, this is my backstory. So I have like this crazy engineering side of my family, and like that family is like engineers and architects. And then my dad was a civil rights attorney who fought against injustice and like all these government not hiring people except for like white men. And he like in the 70s sued the San Francisco Police Department to force them to allow women and minorities on the force. And that eventually had this domino effect across the country. So like that was his thing. So like it was a very weird family mix that got together and created, I don't know what I am. Now I'm like I guess a YouTuber.
And then you became a YouTuber.
That's
This is not to belittle Matt, but I'm somehow thinking of that meme where like it's like the Doge and it's like the It's like the Chad Doge, and then like the ancestors are like, yes, we were inventors and civil rights attorneys, and then
Forged our way across the country.
tree, and then the modern person is like the schmoopy one that's like, I'm a YouTuber. Like, it just feels like we're not doing.
I mean, that is
You know?
kind of how I feel hearing about like college graduates now like can't do anything.
Right, but I didn't really use my college degree in this, but
I'm talking about like your grandfather, great-grandfather,
Great-grandfather
Ralph.
Eighth grade
eighth grade education,
invented a television.
Like I can't hang a shelf.
We're YouTubers.
So you know the problem with the corn golem?
Okay.
Go on.
If it gets too hot, it pops.
Oh, then you're gonna be a popcorn golem. I don't know.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And
then it'd be tasty.
It protects people in movie theaters.
Oh, I forgot that golems were protectors.
So then they lost control.
Well, golems originally were like 15th century, like the Jews created golems to protect the Jews from the pogroms.
Okay, I don't actually know what
They
the
like
actual
inscribed the name of Yahweh or something in
mythology is.
And they have like a scroll in their heads that commands them for what to do.
Yeah, my experience with golems are the ones from Discworld.
Oh, I never read that far into Discworld.
Yeah, there are golems in Discworld, and
That's right. Yes. And like and they help with like the post office in Ankh-Morpork.
And they do a bunch of different stuff, but they also talk real slow.
Yes.
Also I've started reading The Gollum and the Jinni recently. This is going to turn into book talk.
Oh wow, it's coming back.
Yeah, which is this book was written maybe 15 years ago or whatever, but it is about a Gollum who is like a Jewish female Gollum who's like creator created her because he wanted a wife.
Mm-hmm. There's a Twilight Zone about this.
And then the Jinni is a Arab, presents as an Arab guy now, but is like a fire spirit from the Syrian desert, and now they're both stuck in turn of the century New York City.
Which century?
The turn of the 19th century.
Okay, because I guess turn of the...
Oh, wait, actually...
Or the turn of the 20th century.
Turn of the 20th century, late 19th century, like when all of the immigration was happening in New York City. And so you have this Gollum and a Jinni, like an earth creature and a fire spirit, and they're both immigrants in the Lower East Side in New York City. And now they solve crimes together.
No, that's like me and Baron.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, I thought you were going to say then it became erotic fiction.
I haven't gotten that far into the book. I don't think it will become erotic fiction.
Well,
but
I'm thinking of Neil Gaiman, and
it's Gaiman.
Gaiman. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I've never read a book.
Are you thinking of Good Omens?
No, American Gods, and there's a Jinni in that, and he writes some sexual stuff. I'll just say that.
Wait, did you say you never read a book of his? But did you?
No, I said I never read a book because I just watched Wishbone.
Okay. Did Wishbone do an episode on American Gods?
Yeah,
Because that would be crazy.
When it started talking about the sexual stuff, I was really
confused
because he's a dog.
I have to say, Wishbone was a romantic lead in many of those stories.
That's right.
And like a woman would be like, he would be like Romeo, and then this actress would fall in love with the Jack Russell Terrier.
Simpler, innocent times.
Yes. I always wondered what those actors thought.
Playing opposite of a dog.
Yes. This is why I went to Juilliard.
Yeah. So I guess with the Gollum talk, you're not a Full Metal Alchemist fan?
No, I've not. Wait, are you talking about the
anime?
No.
Or manga, which would be a book. And would fit into our book talk.
It would. You could have book talk would talk about manga.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I'm sure there's probably also anime talk, but I'm not as familiar.
True. Just want to point out we have like a whole doc full of like interesting China stuff.
Wait. How far did we get? We got into the.
We talked about one topic on our list, and we didn't even finish it because there was another Chinese agent.
Which was the third one that we want to talk
Oh,
about?
there was Alexander Yukching Ma, who was the former CIA officer who's now been sentenced. So is like official. He's been sentenced to 10 years in federal prison for says conspiring to provide classified information to Chinese intelligence officials. He had allegedly provided Chinese agents with classified material in exchange for a mere $50,000.
Like they're on a tear right now. The DOJ also indicted. Remember this was a few weeks ago. The former Tiananmen Square protester.
Right. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I do think it's very good that the DOJ is going after potential Chinese agents.
I mean, in many of these cases, these investigations have gone on for years.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just that the indictments are being unsealed now, so we're finding out about it.
It's not just the U.S. Remember, a couple months ago, there was in the U.K. they found that British guy who was basically a Chinese agent, and then he was never convicted because he turned up dead.
He wasn't the only one. There was another
guy.
guy who was, I think, like a British national, not a Chinese guy, too.
Yeah.
And they were accused of essentially trying to spy on the Hong Kong community.
Yeah.
In the UK and report back on that to, among other things, like a Chinese police station kind of deal.
And just for clarity, this is not spying. What China is doing is not like, all countries spy. All countries have agents. Like what the level of what China is doing and the goals are so much broader than what any other country is doing. It's very unique what China is doing.
They're really the best at it.
Yeah, and with stories like this, just these people who betray their country to be Chinese agents, just like, why didn't they just design roller coasters?
Oh, I thought you were going to say, why didn't they call you up? Because you have...
Well, alternatively that.
You've complained about that before, yes.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, I guess I can learn from their lessons, see how they got caught.
Uh-huh. So that Beijing protester, his handler, like when they raided the office or something, they found a copy of the FBI's. The FBI had published some kind of booklet on how to recognize transnational repression.
Yeah,
and there was a copy of that in Mandarin, like in Chinese, in like when they raided the. I was just like, that's pretty funny.
Ironic.
Yeah.
It must not be a very good book.
Well, maybe they were like, oh, yes, we are not doing these things. Or are we? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's in their how to spot transnational repression thing. But
well, once there's a book published and you know what to look out for, then you as a, I guess, transnational repressor would, try to avoid those obvious things.
You could also just talk about that on Book Talk.
You could. Yeah. If you had a book talk, what kind of books would you review?
Well, Wishbone episodes.
Oh, that's true.
I know what you'd review. You'd review Chinese classics.
Oh, I thought you were going to go with Harry Potter, erotica.
Somebody else found that Twitter thread recently.
Oh, yeah?
And was replying to me about how hilarious it was. That was now 7 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot has changed since then.
Wait, that was 7 years ago?
Was it
Or
7?
longer
No,
than
it was
that.
it was longer. Maybe it was 10. It was 11.
What, do you know what year it was?
11 years ago?
Wouldn't be 2014. So it's less than 10 years.
Okay. Then maybe it's 2016.
Oh, I started reading Harry Potter after we went to Mar-a-Lago when Trump was meeting with Xi Jinping.
So that was 2017.
Okay, I thought it was 2017, and then you made me question myself.
Yeah.
He's just taking you on a roller coaster.
Now I want to hear about your family, ancestors, and...
I don't know much, actually. I don't think my family's super into that. I don't know if there's any stories.
That's not true, Shelley. He's just trying to keep it a mystery.
I'm a corn golem. Boy, these studio lights are getting hot.
You could always say your family came over on the Mayflower. I think there was some study that looked at if everybody's family who claims their family came over on the Mayflower actually came over on the Mayflower, how big the Mayflower would have had to have been.
It would have been like a super yacht, or a cruise ship.
It's like Titanic. I don't know. Yeah,
Spaceship.
Spaceship.
Maybe
Maybe that would be crazy if your ancestors came over on a spaceship.
Well,
My-
maybe they did.
They came to this world.
If you no, never mind. I'm not going to bring up Battlestar Galactica. Anyway,
I just need to confirm, what were you actually thinking of, Battlestar Galactica or another sci-fi property?
that's what I was thinking of.
Okay.
But you've never watched. Wait, have you watched Battlestar Galactica?
I don't want to talk about
Are you
it.
talking about the remake or the original?
So let's talk about this other thing that's big that's just happening in terms of China news.
Mm-hmm.
Which this is a diversion for all of our sakes to refocus.
A diversion into what the show is about.
This is what happens when we don't have a guest.
Yeah.
So the U.S. House of Representatives just passed the Taiwan Conflict Deterrence Act, and
This is a cool one.
this is a really clever one because it's a really clever way of deterring Chinese aggression. And would one of you like to talk about it? You want to?
Well, it's what it does, right? Is that if China, is it specifically they have to invade or they
No,
have
it
to
also
do
is
something?
It's like
block-
blockade.
blockade as well.
So some kind of, if they make an aggressive move on Taiwan, then the U.S. government is saying that they will publish this financial details.
Corruption
Of-
in the CCP.
Yes, of like the all the ill-gotten wealth of CCP officials,
Mhm.
and they will also, sanction individual officials. So this is not a move against the government of China or the Chinese Communist Party. It is a move against individual CCP officials.
And by sanctioning, they mean not just sanctioning from coming to the U.S., but it's a financial sanction. So it's kind of like what they did to the former chief executive of
Carrie
Hong
Lam.
Kong.
And it also includes family members,
Right.
which is a big loophole because sometimes a lot of these CCP officials they
They just get
do-
the money from family members.
or like they do the corruption where like the corruption is actually that their uncle or their niece or whatever, they are getting the money and funneling it through.
Yeah.
So
And I forget I forget who said this, but we had a guest who talked about something like this. That the idea is that, the Chinese Communist Party, anytime the U.S. does something to China, they can use as propaganda. They're like, the U.S. attacking us Chinese people. It's this colonialism, century of humiliation. But if what the U.S. does is expose the corruption within the CCP, that can't be a propaganda piece for the Communist Party, because then, Chinese people are saying, oh, wait, you guys are pretty
I
corrupt.
don't know if this was. I remember, I think David Stilwell talking about how we should be publishing the financial corruption
yeah,
information,
but
but I don't know
this
if
is
it
a good
was that
trend.
was.
I don't know
spec-
if
I don't know if that specific point was him, but yeah.
Right. I mean, there's an interesting question of what's better, which is to use this as a bit of leverage to prevent the CCP from attacking, or to reveal the knowledge we already have and put in the sanctions that we really ought to put in already, just because it's worthwhile to do those things.
It would be very,
And it would
very
weaken-
destabilizing for the CCP.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I can see both sides of that argument, but at any rate, at least there's discussion on this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the question
And-
is, what does the U.S. actually have? It could be
Right.
a ton, it could be nothing, and it's kind of a bluff.
Right. But the financial sanctions are scary because, I remember with Carrie Lam, the U.S. basically blocked her completely out of the banking system, and so she had to get her entire salary in cash, and she could only go shopping with cash. It was such a weird.
Like people used to do.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she also literally could not use banks, so
Yeah.
that's not necessarily the
Right.
way. Hiding money under the mattresses is something that most people haven't done for a long time.
Most
But-
people.
Most
Most
people.
people.
But yeah, so I think. Well, also you cannot hide $20 million in a Central Park penthouse apartment under your mattress. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff has to go through international banking systems.
It depends on the
and,
size of the denominations of the bills.
How big would the bills have to be?
Well, I'm just saying, the U.S. for a short time in the early 20th century printed $10,000 bills.
Yes, but we no longer have those.
Right, no, but I'm just saying that they essentially, like, a stack of $100 bills, a whole stack is $10,000, right? $10,000.
Okay, so sure, if we had Zimbabwe currency, you could hide $20 million in your mattress or whatever. But
This is an odd hypothetical.
yes.
Anyway, the point is that the House of Representatives has passed this bill. It is not a law because the Senate now has to look at it and make revisions and vote on it.
Yeah.
And it may or may not come to pass because
It needs to be
sometimes
signed by
things,
the president.
yeah, sometimes
whoever
things
that
can
person
be
might be.
stalled in one house and not,
Yeah,
and
I
never
mean, we've
pass.
seen things that have been passed in the House and had not made it to the Senate. Like last year, there was a bill about combating organ harvesting in
Right.
China, and it passed the House unanimously,
Mhm.
and it's never been called up for a vote in the Senate.
Right, because it can be blocked from that for various political reasons and various processes. Part of it is sometimes there's a lot of things to vote on and it doesn't get prioritized, but that's not always the reason.
Yeah, so it's interesting that basically for the first week that the House has been back in session, they dubbed it China Week
Mhm.
and passed 25 bills.
That's pretty
That
creative.
was to combat the CCP. So the one that we were talking about, the Taiwan one, is one of those. But they also passed a something about Biosecure Act, which is about security access for companies that do this type of biological research or whatever to make sure that there's no national security threats.
China's not going to get our genetically modified corn golems.
Yeah. Countering CCP Drones Act. Some of them are very specific. Decoupling from Foreign Adversarial Battery Dependence Act.
Tesla, excuse me.
Oh, yeah,
Oh.
good point.
Protecting American Agriculture from Foreign Adversaries Act. So this one's pretty interesting because there's been a lot of accusations about,
Buying up farmland?
buying up farmland.
Doesn't
Yeah.
a Chinese company own, what's that bacon company? Yes.
Smithfield.
Yeah, the pork.
Yes. The strategic pork reserves.
China owns our bacon. And I'm very unhappy about this.
Boom.
Yes.
I mean, that's not even a joke.
Yeah. DHS restrictions on Confucius Institutes and Chinese entities of concern. Chinese dominance of electric vehicles in America Act.
That's great. But yeah, it's the Senate that is the issue. With the organ harvesting thing, I think it's interesting that is now a thing, as we have the first survivor of organ harvesting coming out and talking about it. Which, when I first heard that story, I was like, wait, he's a survivor of forced organ harvesting? How does that
It's a
work?
very unusual story, but we just published an episode this weekend about that story. So check that out on our China Uncensored channel.
Yeah, it's a big story, and it might be.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that sounds almost too crazy
Yeah.
to be true. And, but he has had medical examinations and, like,
He's missing parts of his
scans.
liver and heart,
Lungs.
lungs.
Yeah. Well, that's the only parts that they can take, and you have a chance of survival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. It's a wild story. Check that out.
So, but anyway, I think it's fantastic that Congress is actually really taking action on this. And it's such a difference from, 10 years ago when we were screaming into the void and Congress was basically doing whatever Wall Street wanted when it came to China.
Well, it was like what Matt Turpin said when we had him on, right? That the posture of the U.S. government is that we should help China's economy. This is the episode that you were doing Kung Fu in the Mountains for.
Which then everyone found out was basically true.
True. I know. When I said that, I knew people thought I was kidding.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But yeah, it was interesting because he made the point that the reason that all of this was encouraged was that from a philosophical is maybe not the right word, but that standpoint, the idea was the standpoint was that we should help China's economy because that will help them and the world at large,
Yeah, the whole ESG thing. Like, let's take American pensions and put it into China because it'll help them become a democracy, and then everyone will get lots of money back.
It sounds great.
It does, except it's not true.
Well, so what, and I think part of the reason that we're seeing this shift in government is, well, it is helped along by what's happening with U.S. companies that have been investing in China. And according to a recent survey, only 47% of companies in China see a positive 5-year outlook, which is the lowest number ever. And so, like a lot of the, Wall Street companies that had been investing in China are now pulling out or trying to reduce their footprints for whatever reason. There's less optimism now than there's been in decades about the future of making money in China.
But it's such a good investment when China becomes a democracy. It's going to be so much money for everyone.
And
There's 1.4 billion customers.
yeah. So, like, I think that it is, and I would thank Xi Jinping for this, because the policies that, have made it more and more difficult for foreign companies to succeed. Part of it's the intellectual property theft. Part of it is the enforcement of so-called state secrets laws,
Also,
investigations.
the whole idea about now we need to essentially bring everything back to the state, right?
Right.
Yeah,
So
state-owned companies.
there's so much pressure now on companies that foreign companies are just, thanks to Xi Jinping's policies, these foreign companies are less and less interested in doing business there, which allows members of Congress who may be influenced by Wall Street to not have that influence be strong enough to prevent them from passing legislation like this.
No matter
China-
how many Linda Suns they have as their aides.
Well, I mean, the thing is that I'm fairly confident that the governor's office did not know what Linda Sun was allegedly doing.
It sounds like
They may have said, "Oh, well, she's someone who knows a lot about China, and we can look to her for advice."
Or
on
she
how to
knows the
handle
Chinese
issues.
constituents, right?
Right.
I think that's, yeah. So then if they're like, if she's like, oh no, you don't want to offend, the Chinese community by talking about the Uyghurs, or,
Right.
if even though that's not true necessarily, they don't really know any better.
Yeah. But so at any rate, when it comes to the Western companies pulling out, so what's happening is Xi Jinping is putting on these pressures that are reducing the amount of foreign direct investment, and that is helping to crash the Chinese economy, which relies heavily on this constant injection of foreign money to sustain itself.
I think, well, one thing is that Xi Jinping, I think, understands that this may be a chicken or egg scenario, right? Where he also has decided that they need to sanctions-proof the Chinese economy. So maybe they do not want to rely on so many foreign businesses coming in and injecting money.
Right.
Because when they invade Taiwan, that's going to dry up.
And you see this in a lot of what she has been saying, especially to young Chinese people about, Turku, eat bitterness, work hardship, embrace
Back
the
in my
hardship.
day, I climbed a mountain and went down into the countryside. Yeah,
Carrying
yeah.
Back in
bushels
my
of
day,
rice.
I climbed a mountain. And
That's right.
And went back down.
And what mountain was that?
Kilimanjaro.
I don't know
Why
why that
you
was
did
how you
that.
said that.
That's my bragging. I don't know how to brag. I lack the riz.
Ah, skibbity.
Oh, that was cringe, fam.
All right. We'll build a time machine. Go back in time, take Matt's great-great-grandfather's television and smash it before he goes to California, and the timeline will be fixed.
I thought you were going to say build a time machine and go back 2 minutes to before Matt said Kilimanjaro.
No,
Imagine
Chris
like
wants-
a time portal opens. Wait, stop, Matt. Don't say it. That's what you use the technology of time travel for.
To keep yourself from embarrassing yourself. I actually think that's
Actually, yeah.
Yes,
that'd
that would be a
good.
very popular application of time
Yeah.
travel.
Yeah. I mean, I prefer that to Chris's idea, which would have blipped me out of existence.
No, you might still be in existence. You might just be in Nebraska.
Well, the
Oh, wait, but
parents
no,
would've
your
meant,
parents.
you
yes,
probably
never
would.
never
I
mind.
wiped you out of existence.
Yes,
I'm sorry,
yes, he
man.
has.
Wow. It's amazing. It's like that speech Dr. Manhattan gave at the end of The Watchmen. This is book talk, where he talks about what a miracle it is for anyone to be born. This is the miracle he realizes, where he changes. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful moment in a beautiful book.
A beautiful book.
30-second book review, book talk. I should just make those short. I'll pull those out into shorts.
Yeah. That's
Book talk.
definitely gonna amp up the popularity of this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And you should do your shorts while wearing shorts underneath your suit.
Where's the time travel? Where am I from the future? Maybe
No,
we
this
don't.
really should be Matt from the future coming back and being like, "Stop it, Matt."
That implies that he learns something.
That's true. That's true.
I will never learn. So, is there any more China stuff to talk about?
We got through like what, 2 topics?
Maybe 3. I was going to mention that China just fined PricewaterhouseCoopers and has stopped them from operating for 6 months.
What is that?
It's a accounting firm, auditing firm, an American one,
Oh,
but they have a branch that operates inside China, and they're being fined for something related to Evergrande.
ooh.
So this is basically because remember how the U.S. government and the PCAOB wanted to eventually decided that they were going to properly audit Chinese companies that were trying to list on Wall Street.
Yes.
And
This was a whole battle that it seemed that Chinese companies might get taken off of the stock
exchange.
exchange.
well, they would have
Yeah.
if they didn't comply.
Yeah.
But now, so they basically had to let U.S. auditors in to look at their books, and now one of those U.S. auditing firms is being probably punished arbitrarily as a kind of punishment for all of this, right?
I mean, I don't know how legitimate the reason for the fine.
Would you
but-
say that it is typical for a case this size in China to be purely based on criminal or civil litigation without any political element involved?
I mean, I don't think litigation comes into it, but yes, it's obviously a move by the Chinese Communist Party, but
Well, I wonder where
did
this
they
is gonna
actually
end.
do something wrong? That's what I'm not sure about.
I wonder if this will eventually lead to the delisting of a bunch of Chinese companies.
Which I would argue should have happened a decade ago, but
Yeah, they're saying basically that the problem is that PricewaterhouseCoopers didn't properly audit Evergrande.
Okay.
Okay, so the Chinese Communist Party, which has a party cell in every major company in China, including a very substantial presence in Evergrande, and the Communist Party that controls every aspect of people's lives and even monitors their social credit, did not know what was happening at Evergrande, but was relying on a Western auditing firm.
Well, I'm saying it's accusing PricewaterhouseCoopers of being complicit in the cover-up of what was going on in Evergrande, which they may have been, but also that is essentially at the time the operating cost of working in China, right?
Yeah. And I
Like-
think to Matt's point, he's saying that essentially the Communist Party also probably knew and covered it up.
I mean, this could be a scapegoat situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And
Did
that
you know
would be
this-
bad.
No,
Where-
I like that. I like that.
Thank you, Chris.
I like that one.
Oh god,
Did you know the scapegoat is not actually killed?
is this driven out?
It's just driven out into the wilderness, returned to Azazel.
What is Azazel?
What does that mean? Well, he's like a demonic spirit. I forget if he's like a goat thing or a man of lawlessness.
Is this from the Bible?
Yeah, that's where it comes from.
Which is, you haven't read, to be clear, because it's a book.
Hey, this is book talk about the Bible.
I'm sure there's Bible talk. I mean, or I
Talk.
don't know. if
Bible
they call it-
podcasts.
Yeah, on Day of Atonement, there are 2 goats. One becomes what we call the scapegoat, where all the sins are kind of put on it, and then it's driven out of camp. It's not killed because it's now ceremonially unclean because it's got all those sins. So it's pushed out of camp. They later did start to kill it because sometimes the goat would like wander back into town, and that was awkward. But they always killed it outside of camp.
Okay, well that makes it better. 'cause
Yeah,
then
usually
you're-
like pushing it off a cliff.
Oh my god.
The idea,
okay.
like returning to the abyss.
Uh-huh.
Return to sender. Take the sin, return it to sender.
What happened to the other goat?
It was killed.
Okay. So really, there's no good outcome for the goats.
Well, it depends. Like the idea was that the goat was like happy about that.
Which
Because it was
goat?
carrying the weight of all these people's sins.
Well, I think maybe more the other one, like the idea that they were voluntarily sacrificing themselves, and so the blood of the other goat would be used to cleanse the altar and the Holy of Holies of the taint of sin, so that then God's presence could come that one day and not destroy everyone and everything. And so the conclusion you should draw is that Jesus, in addition to being the lamb, is also both goats.
Is that what it says?
It doesn't specifically say that, but that is the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world.
So
That's
you're
Day of
saying
Atonement
that
thing.
Jesus is the goat?
Both goats. He's both goats.
No, like, he's the goat.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
goated. Yeah, like
Yeah.
goated. Yeah.
No.
I believe that is the canon.
Book talk.
Book talk, Bible book talk.
And this is why the CCP is trying to push PricewaterhouseCoopers off a cliff.
Oh, right. That's how we started talking
Because
about the
it's a
scapegoats.
scapegoat.
They've
Yeah.
loaded them with the sins of the Chinese Communist Party.
I wonder
Or-
if it will work for them.
Yeah.
No, their sins are going to come back to give them their karmic due. I'm mixing.
Now
two,
there's
like,
different religions
world
going
religions.
on, I think.
Very disappointed. Last podcast I talked about biblical giants, and no one said anything about biblical giants. It's so cool. And the Nephilim, the sons of God, lay with the children of men, the women, daughters of men, and created giants. Nephilim. A lot of the Bible's about giants. It's cool.
Giant talk.
Giant talk. Subscribe, like, share. This is what happens when we don't have a guest. Thank you for watching, unless you're from Oklahoma. I'm Chris Chappell.
I'm Shelley Jong.
And I'm Matt Gnaizda.
We'll see you next time. Please come back.